We are doing a series right now on identity. We've been talking about our true identity and how it is that we find our true identity in Jesus. And so we're going to talk more about that today. But before we do that, we are going to show a video clip. This is kind of a movie classic moment about core identity and what it's like to have that core identity challenged. And so if we can get the, looks like the media folks are busy. I'm not sure if we're ready or not. Yeah, are we good? Okay, let's let the lights and we'll see. All right, can we get the lights? Now, one thing all of you young people in here don't really get is how amazing this movie was when it first came out. You think it's sort of this hokey old movie with bad special effects, but this was like the best movie ever made, and the special effects were amazing when it came out. I remember when I was 10 years old, I was just being in awe. Like, this is like it's real. It's so high tech. You guys don't even get that. But why is it that this moment of finding out that Vader is his father is such a just huge, traumatic, emotional moment for Luke? You know, why do we get this sort of agonized scream and this total devastation when he finds out this news? It's about identity, isn't it? Because it's not really about who Vader is, it's about who Luke is. And when he hears those words, "I'm your father," something in the core of his being just loses hope, right? All of a sudden, his ability to believe in who he can be is just shattered. Because so much of our core identity, who we are, has to do with who our parents are. And when he thinks, "My father is a hero," it's so easy to think, I could be a hero too. And when he realizes that my father was a monster, there's something inside him that just goes, maybe I'm just not able to do any of the things I imagined. Maybe I can't be the person that I wanted to be because I'm somehow destined to be like my father instead. And so it's this devastating identity moment. So much of our identity and who we are is wrapped up in who our parents are. One place that I've observed this repeatedly is on school playgrounds. Have you ever been on a school playground and watched two little boys bragging about their dads? You got the little boy, "My daddy is so big. Yeah, my daddy is so strong. My daddy can beat up your daddy. My daddy's so smart." And what's going on there? It's not about the dads. It's about them. Because if they're able to believe my dad is fantastic, then they believe I'm pretty good too, right? They're able to believe in themselves largely because they believe that their dad is fantastic. And you can see sort of the opposite of this in kind of more destructive playground behavior. I remember this from my junior high school, and you'd see two boys start to get in a fight, and they get sort of, really kind of posturing with each other, and you see the insults go back and forth, and they think of nasty things to say about each other, and you're kind of watching the tension to see if it's going to be a fight. I don't know if it was like this in your junior high school. I went to junior high school in the 80s in Los Angeles, and so this is my perspective. It might be different from yours, but they're squaring off, right? And then finally, one of the kids says something nasty about the other kid's mother. Sometimes it's just as simple as "your mama." And then sometimes it's something much more graphic, like, "your mother is morally reprehensible in a sexual way." But that's when the whole thing blows up. Then all of a sudden the kid whose mother has been insulted comes flying out with both fists. He's freaking out. He's got tears streaming down his face. He's freaking out, and the fight goes down. Long ago it used to be you threw down your gauntlet. The guy who challenged the other guy to a duel would throw a glove on the ground, and that was supposed to be an insult that would start a fight. But now it was, oh, I'm going to insult your mother. And that was basically a challenge to a fight. And the two boys would go at it. And later when you would break them up, usually like the kid whose mother had been insulted would still be crying. There'd just be tears streaming down his face. And, don't you say those about my mother. And, what's that all about? It's the same thing. It's core identity. All of the insults directed at each other didn't hurt nearly as badly as the insult directed at the mother, because the insult directed at the mother speaks to the core of that child's being. If my mother is not okay, then I'm not okay. And that speaks even deeper than anything that somebody could say about the child themselves. That's maybe another thing that people who are younger in the audience don't really get, because I Googled this on YouTube, and there are all these little, yo mama battles where people kind of, go back and forth and think of, funny things. I thought about maybe showing one, but they were all a little bit inappropriate, so I didn't bring one in. But when I was a kid, this was not a joke. I mean, those were fighting words, and that was how the playground battles got started almost every time. And we're going to look at a passage in Scripture here where Jesus kind of does this to some of the people that are starting to follow him. He basically throws out this, insults to your daddy challenge that is really hard to read. It's uncomfortable. It's kind of like the biggest your daddy insult that anybody could have thought of in that particular situation. And we're going to look at what he says and why he says that, and what possible reason Jesus might have for saying something like that. We're going to be in John chapter 8. So if you brought your Bible, you can go ahead and find John chapter 8. If you would like a Bible and you don't have one, there's some on the back table. You're welcome to take one. You can take it home with you if you like. And the words will also be up here on the screen. Lord, God, would you help us to understand your word? And God, as we look at this really hard passage, God, I ask that you would help us to understand your heart and what it is that you're saying, what it is that you're doing. And God, I ask that you would work in us and that you would help us to find ourselves in you. And pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. So Jesus is addressing some of the people who have started to believe in him. And here's what happens. Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him, "If you make your home in my message, you are truly my disciples. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." This is probably going to look a little bit different if you're reading along. This is kind of an own translation, because I wanted to draw out some nuances in the Greek that I wasn't seeing in the English translation. So it'll look a little bit different than what you have. But it's come and live in me. Come and remain in me and live in my message. And if you live in my message, if you make your home in what I'm coming to bring to you, then you're going to find truth, and truth is going to set you free. So it's an invitation to the family of God. It starts out really beautiful. Hey, it's an invitation to come and to be children of God and to be in relationship with Jesus and to find freedom. And then there's this interesting response. They answered him, "We are descendants of Abraham and have never been enslaved to anyone. How can you say we will become free?" And so they're rejecting the message. Hey, we don't need you to come and bring freedom to us. Don't you know who we are? We are children of Abraham, which means we're Jews, which means we are in with God. We are the in people. We're good. We got everything we need. We're already free. Thanks very much. We don't need this. What are you talking about? And Jesus goes on, says, here we go. Jesus answered them, "Truly, I tell you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not live in the house forever. The Son lives there forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed." And so here's kind of the first insult. No, you guys are not free. You guys are actually slaves. And then he says, "I know that you are descendants of Abraham, genetically, but you're trying to kill me because my message isn't penetrating you. I say what I have seen from my father, and you do what you have heard from your father." And there's the throwdown. Oh, my father
is God and your father is somebody else. And then he goes on. They answered him, Abraham is our father. And Jesus said to them, if you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the things Abraham did. But now you're trying to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God. This is not what Abraham did. You are doing what your father does. They said to him, we are not illegitimate. We have one Father who is God. Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me because I went out from God and came here. I didn't come on my own, but he sent me. Why don't you understand my words? Because you can't receive my message. And so we get this just incredibly hard insult. I mean, he's just shredding them. Your father is not God. Your father is somebody else. And if you continue to read, and this goes on for a while, and I only cut out kind of a small portion of it, he makes this insult very explicit. He says, your father is diablos, meaning the slanderer or the liar, the one who tells lies about people. That's the one who is your father. You guys claim that you're children of God, that you're children of the one in whom is truth and who sets you free, but you guys are actually children of the lie. And because you're children of the lie, the liar makes you slaves. And again, this is just incredibly hard to read. Usually we think of Jesus as being the guy who is so gracious to us, so kind, and says such encouraging and hope-filled words. And these words just sound cruel, honestly. So what's going on here? Why would Jesus even say something like this? Especially it says this was to the Jews who believed in him. So he's saying this to people who are trying to follow him. He's not saying this to people who've rejected him. He's saying this to people who are believing in him. Why? Why would he say something like this? And sometimes the things that we really most need to hear are the things that are the hardest to hear and the hardest to say. Jesus isn't wanting to hurt them. He's not wanting to insult them, but there's something here that they need to hear, and there's not going to be any other way for them to hear it unless he throws it right in their face and challenges them at the very core of who they think that they are. And sometimes we have those moments in our lives where we need somebody to get in our face and tell us how it is. And if it doesn't happen, we're not going to change. A moment in my life that was like that is when I was 20 years old and I was in addiction to drugs and alcohol. I went to a counseling group on campus at UCSD for students with drug and alcohol addiction problems. And some of the students who went were clean and sober already, and some of them, like me, were not, or were still using. And we used to meet every Friday afternoon, and the guy who ran the group was a man named Dan Munoz, who is still one of my heroes. He was so patient with us and so good to us and so kind to me for just years on end, while I would just come with my mess to this group. But there was one day where he wasn't so kind and sweet and gentle. There was a new guy in the group, and he had just shared with us that he was having all kinds of financial problems because his cocaine addiction was just burning a continual hole in his pocket. He was just constantly broke and constantly in financial trouble because he was spending all of his money on cocaine. And I said very flippantly in response, I wouldn't really know anything about your money problems because I don't pay for drugs. And Dan, sweet, gentle, kind Dan, gave me the most leveling stare I have ever had from anyone in my entire life. And he said to me, "You pay." And for a while I just sat there thinking, what is he talking about? No, I don't. And then he said it again. He said, "You pay, just in a different way, but you pay." And I sat there for a while. I'm thinking, what is he talking about? And little by little, it starts to sink into me, and the little light bulb goes on in my brain, and I'm saying to myself, "Oh my goodness, sweet, kind, gentle, patient Dan is calling me a whore. Right straight to my face, in front of this whole room full of people. And I immediately opened up my mouth because I had a million things to say in my defense. And I'm opening my mouth and I'm thinking all of the things that I'm going to say because I have a lot of excuses because it's not like that and they don't understand. They don't understand me. They don't understand my friends. They don't understand what's going on in my life. And I could hear in my mind, I could hear all those words coming out of my mouth. And I'm looking around the room at my fellow addicts and I'm thinking, oh, they're not going to buy any of this. Like, not for 1 second. And I realized you have just been tried in this moment by a jury of your peers and found guilty. And anything that you attempt to say in your defense will only dig the hole deeper and deeper and deeper by confirming for them the truth of all of the things that they already know about you. And I'm still sitting there with my mouth open, just getting ready to say all the things that I'm going to say. And as I'm realizing, the excuses you have are true. It is true that there's a lot of things they don't understand. There's a lot of things they don't understand about you. There's a lot of things they don't understand about people that you care about. And yeah, okay, so it's not like that. But if a room full of people exactly like you, who know how you work and know how you think, and who get this whole addiction thing, aren't going to buy any of your excuses for 1 second, then maybe, just maybe, you need to stop and think about who you are and what you're about. And whether or not you're really who you think you are, if you don't look like that on the outside. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to ask yourself if there's a reason that you've never had a boyfriend who wasn't a drug dealer. And I finally shut my mouth, just closed it, and I didn't say anything on that day. I just took it. And it was a few months later that I first made an attempt to get clean and sober, my very first real try. And it was a lot of getting up and falling down and getting up and falling down. But at least from that time, I started to try. And as I said, Dan kind of continues to be one of my heroes. Jamie and I have stayed in touch with him over the years, exchanged Christmas cards. And we had lunch with him just a few months ago. And I reminded him of this day. I said, do you remember when you said that to me? And his face just broke. I saw his face just crumple apart. And for the first time in my life, I realized how hard it was for him to say that to me. And he started to apologize. Started to tell me how sorry he was. I said, no, please don't. Don't apologize. You told me exactly what I needed to hear. And I needed somebody to say, this is the extent of your slavery to your addiction, so that I could start to take steps in the direction of being free. It's what I needed. Don't be sorry. And this is what Jesus is doing to these people who are trying to follow him. It's a moment where the truth is just going to hurt. And where the truth is going to be really, really hard to say. But someone is going to have to say it because they're not going to walk into freedom unless they hear this first. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to just walk back through this passage. We're going to look at what Jesus is saying to these people and what's going on for them. And then while we're doing that, I want us to look at us. Let's make this kind of a heart check for ourselves. Let's ask ourselves, what's going on with me? And do I have anything in common with these people? Does my life look like I am living as a child of God, or are there other things going on in my life? And let's make it just an honest self-assessment. No fear. Remember that Jesus' intentions are good, so this it's not a scary, condemning, but let's just do an honest self-assessment, a heart check, and see kind of where we're at as we walk through where these people are at. I'm going to start just by talking about what children are like, some basic characteristics of children. Because if we're children of God, then these should be the things that characterize our relationship with him. First of all, dependency. Children depend on their parents to meet their needs. Everything that a child needs is provided by their parents. Food, shelter, care, all of that stuff is provided by the parents for the child. And in a healthy parent-child relationship, the children trust the parents to meet their needs. The next one on here is obedience. And I'm guessing there's probably a couple parents in the room who are thinking, that does not characterize my relationship with my children. I don't know about you. My children are not obedient, but I think we take a certain amount of obedience for granted. Yes, it's true that obedience is something which has to be taught, and that kids rebel and they have to be taught to obey. But what happens is we get really frustrated when our kids don't obey, but our kids' default behavior all day long, over and over and over again, is to obey their parents. We don't think, as parents, we don't think how often we tell our kids what to do and they do it. But we're telling our kids what to do all the time. And most of the time the kids are doing what they're told because it's part of their instinct. It's just part of their gut reaction to that dependency relationship with their parents. They need direction from parents. The next one here is attachment. A child is attached to the parents. They want to be with their mom and dad all the time. They want to be touching them. They want to be smelling them. They want to be near them. They feel safe and they feel happy when they're close to the parent. We have this one child in our home group. She's about 2 years old now, and I've been watching her grow up since she was a baby. And it's been only just recently that she's willing to go more than 4 feet from her mom. When she first started to learn to walk, she would come to our house and she would sit on her mom, and then she would walk like maybe 4 feet away, check something out, and then all of a sudden you'd get this look like, oh no, where's mom? She'd spin around, like go back, touch, she's on base. It's like safe. Okay, I got mom, I'm okay. And then she'd go back out, just a few steps, and then she'd come running back, tag, okay, I'm all right because I'm touching mom. And for some of us mothers, we have some positive connotations for that and some negative ones. There's those moments in a mother's life when you're just like, I just want someone to not be touching me. Just 10 minutes. 10 minutes where no one touches me, where my body belongs to myself and no one invades my space. Just for a little while, right? But it's healthy, right? It's good, healthy child development. Our kids need that from us in order to have the courage to go out on their own. So part of just a healthy parent-child relationship is this attachment, this need to be with the parent. And then the last one on here is imitation. Kids want to be like their parents. They're constantly copying their parents. They try to dress up like mom and dad. They pretend that they're cooking. They pretend that they're taking care of babies. They pretend that they're driving. They pretend to go to work. They pretend to do everything that you do, and they aspire to be like their parents when they're bigger. My daughter Rose gets comments all the time lately, you look exactly like your mom. And she grins, and I'm thinking it's going to be a few years from now where she's not going to grin. I'm guessing like a few years from now, she's going to be rolling her eyes going, oh my goodness, leave me alone. But right now, she's still young enough that telling her she's like me is a compliment automatically. I don't even have to do anything right. I don't have to be an admirable person. Looking like me doesn't have to be a compliment to anybody else. But just the idea, you're like your mom, to a young child is just, oh, thank you. Because I needed to feel like I was like my mom to feel good about myself as a human. I must be good because I'm like my mom. And so kids, they imitate their parents and they want to be like their parents. So if these are just characteristics of a parent-child relationship, then how do we know that we are God's children? And this is going to be the kind of honest self-assessment part. This is going to be the heart check-in. How are we doing? And we're just going to ask a series of questions that come out of the situation in the text. The first one is about dependency, and it's, where's my security? In the passage, the people are finding their security in their genetic heritage. They say, hey, Abraham is our father, so we're good. We're insiders. We got this thing with God down. We don't really need anything else. We feel secure in our relationship. We're fine. And I think it's tempting for Christians to kind of be judgmental toward the Jews in the story when we see that. Oh, those Jews, they thought it was all about biology. Just who's your parents? It's a family thing. You're automatically in just by your family heritage. And we know better. We know that it's not like that. But I'm not sure that we do, because I think sometimes we treat being a Christian very much the same way. Somehow or other, we feel like there was a sign-up sheet. Do you want to be a Christian? Sure, I'll be a Christian. And okay, now I've checked the box off, and I'm officially good. Now I'm an insider. I got the insider identity. I'm good with God. It's like registering to vote. Now I register to vote, and I can check if I want to be a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. And just hey, when people ask me what my religion is, I check Christian, which means I'm in, right? No, it's not how it works, right? It's not just a sign-up thing. But the invitation from Jesus is to relationship with God. The invitation is, hey, come and just move into the family. Come and dwell in my word. Make your home in the message that I'm bringing and be part of God's family. And then you will know the truth. And then you will be set free. So security is not just in a kind of in-group identity. I think sometimes we find our security in other things. We find our security in our family. We find our security in our friend group. Often money is a big one here. I find our security in money. I've got X amount of money in the bank, and so things are going to be okay. I'm safe because I've got X amount of money stored away, and I'm finding my security in that. And again, let's just ask ourselves right now, hey, where's my security? What am I dependent on? And is my security in my relationship with God as his child, or is my security in something else? The next question on here is, who do I listen to? This partly has to do with obedience. These people are saying, hey, we're free. And Jesus says, no, actually, you're slaves, because what you're listening to is your sin. You obey your sin. You don't obey God. You're going around doing just the things that you compulsively are addicted to and need to do, which aren't healthy, rather than obeying God. What are those things for us? What are those areas of just kind of compulsive need that we're listening to instead of listening to God? For me, in the story I shared, it was drugs and alcohol. For some of us, it's food. When food calls us, it's more important than anything else. For some of us, it's other just physical desires that we have. It's the need to meet just biological, physical desires and needs that we listen to more than we listen to the voice of the Lord. Media is a really big one, because we're just kind of constantly bombarded by media communication and these messages. Hey, you need to be like this. This is the way that you should be. You need to have this much money. You need to have this much stuff. You need to look like this. And here's all the stuff that you need to buy in order to be able to achieve this appearance or this status or whatever it is. And so there's this kind of constant message, here, listen to us, here's how you need to be, that's kind of relentless in the media. Some of it is from family or friends. Sometimes there's so much pressure just to do what our parents want us to do, even when our parents are wrong. There's pressure to do what our friends want us to do, even when our friends are wrong. Who is it that we're listening to? So let's just ask ourselves, who do I listen to? Am I listening to God? Am I listening to other things? Another part of obedience that we see in the passage is Jesus is talking about how he's coming with a message from God, and he says, my message doesn't penetrate you. It won't go into you. And I'm telling you this, but you can't even understand the words that I'm saying, and the reason you can't understand the words I'm saying is because you're unwilling to receive the message that I'm bringing you. God is telling you something, and you're not listening. And that partly has to do with obedience, but also partly has to do with the attachment issue that we talked about. He says, if you really were God's children, you would love me, because I came from God with a message from him for you. And so you would say, oh, it looks like God. It feels like God. It smells like God. This is good. You would want to receive something that comes from God because you want to be close to him. But you're rejecting it instead. And so another good question is, what do I delight in? Or do I delight in the truth and in that way find freedom? Or do I really actually delight in lies? And do those lies make me a slave? So a question for us again, what do I delight in? Do I delight in good and wonderful things? Do I delight in the word of the Lord? Do I delight in worshiping the Lord? Do I delight in serving others and loving people and doing all of the things that God leads me toward? Or are my delights in other things which are less good? And then the next question here is, who am I becoming? Let's see if we can get it. There it is. Who am I becoming? Is Jesus actually my number one role model, or am I following other role models? And this is kind of where the crux of Jesus' attack is you're not acting like Abraham acted. You're not acting like God has acted. You're acting like the liar. And your real father is the person that you're acting like. So who are you imitating? And who are you becoming? And so the invitation is to make Jesus our role model, to be like him in all of the things that we do. But it's so tempting to copy other human behaviors. We tend to copy our parents' behavior, as we talked about before, and some of our parents' behavior is wonderful. And we grow up thinking, man, I want to be just like that. I want to remember to do all those things when I grow up. And then there are all those other things that you think, that's something that my parents do that I don't want to copy. I don't want to be like that. And I find that the worst place for this is in my own parenting with my own kids. That over and over again, I find myself thinking, you did it again. That was the thing that your parents did that was not good. And you keep saying you're going to do the good things and not the bad things. And yet you keep copying all your parents' behavior, including the bad stuff that you didn't want to do. Why are you doing this to your kids? It's so frustrating. But it's so hard for us not to just copy what we've seen. And we do the things that our parents did, the good things and the bad things both. Also, media comes in here again. We just see so much media, and it's so tempting to just copy what we see in the media. I get sucked in by movies all of the time. I get emotionally involved with the characters, and so many times the cool-looking movie characters are not at all like Jesus. I love those movie characters that are really kind of full of themselves. They're really confident. They take revenge on their enemies. You can't mess with them. They know they're awesome, and they act like you know what I'm talking about. These are like a lot of male and female movie hero folks that you do not mess with because they are tough, right? And I think, yeah, I want to be like that. And God's all like, yeah, because that's so much like Jesus, who called you to be humble. Ooh. And who called you to be gentle. Oh. And who called you to love your enemies and not to resist an evil person. So, those movie heroes look so cool. I want to be like that. But that's not what God's calling me to. So be like Jesus. Be humble. Be gentle. Be loving. My all-time worst moment for this was also in middle school. I think a lot of people had their all-time worst moments for these things in middle school. All of the popular kids in my school were incredibly mean. And I remember thinking, this is so weird. How is it that being mean makes you popular? You would think people would like the nice kids, but at that age, they don't. They like the nasty kids. And so everybody was just mean to everybody all the time, and the meaner you were, the cooler that you were. And there was one day when it just dawned on me that I could have a strategy for how to be cool. And I thought, if I did something really nasty, I would be cool. And so I went home and planned this out. It was intentional. I thought it through. Betrayed the confidence of one of my only bottom of the totem pole friends. I was pretty low, so I didn't have that many to start out with. And I humiliated and embarrassed her in front of our class. And again, I planned it out, and I carried it through. I got to the end of my day, and I wasn't any cooler. None of the popular kids liked me any more than they did yesterday. But now, one of the few people in my life who really trusted me didn't trust me anymore. Maybe two of the people who trusted me didn't trust me anymore, her and me. I went home just thinking, wow, what a mistake. And I can't ever take it back. I can't go and take that back. And I just went home feeling like I lost my integrity. I lost my ability to believe in myself because, I tried to copy the wrong people because I thought somehow or other that was going to make me cool. It didn't make me cool. It just made me ashamed. And it's followed me my whole life. It's amazing how a few words spoken just on one day can stick with you. But it's always stuck with me. And every time I think about that, I think, who do you want to be? Do you want to be like that, or do you want to be like Jesus? Whose behavior are you going to copy? You're going to copy his behavior. You're going to copy the cool people that you see around you. So again, who are we becoming? Who are we being more and more like all the time? And then the last question on here is, do I feel free? And this is what it was all about from the very beginning, right? Jesus said in the very beginning, come and make your home in my message. And if you come and you make your home in me, then you're going to know the truth, and the truth is going to set you free. So from the very beginning, this is what it's all been about, has been freedom. And so just a really good heart check question for us is just, do I feel free? Am I living in freedom, or do I feel like I'm living kind of just all bound up inside? And again, this is what it's been all about from the very, very beginning. No matter how we felt like we did on the personal checkup. It's not a, how am I doing as a Christian score? I've scored myself as Christian and I am a 7. Or I scored myself as a Christian and I'm a 4. Or it's not a scorecard. How am I doing? And it's not a here are all the ways that I suck guilt trip. It's not even a here are all the ways that I need to get my act together to-do list. None of these things are on us, are they? Being a father is God's job. It's not our job at all. So ultimately, what is this all about? God is inviting us to rest and to be set free. That's where Jesus started out in the very beginning, right? Come and make your home in me, and you're going to find freedom. At the very, very beginning of John's gospel, he starts out and he says that Jesus came and gave anyone who believed in him the right to become children of God. And John hasn't changed his message one bit, even though chapter 8 has so many hard words. The message is still the same. It's an invitation. Come and be children of God. It's just God saying to us, let me be your Father. And again, it's not, none of this is a to-do list for us. We don't fix these things. We just say, yes, God, you can be my Father. I'll let you parent me like this. When my kids were little, they were obsessed with dog movies. So we watched, dog movie after dog movie for years on end because they loved dogs so much. And one that I remember is a movie called Shiloh. It was about a dog with an abusive owner who treated him really, really poorly, who meets a little boy who loves him. And the little boy wants to adopt him, and the master who had him before wants to keep him. And there's a struggle over who this dog is going to live with and be cared for. And there's one moment in the movie where you can see just like the tension that's going on, because it's so hard not to just go back to what we know. It's so hard not to go back to what we've been doing all along. It's so hard not to go back to the person that has been caring for him, even though he's been abusing him. And yet here is this offer of life and freedom and of a kid who loves him. And the dog has to choose. There's a moment where both people are calling him. Come here, come here. And he has to pick, who am I going to go to? Who am I going to run to? Am I going to run back to the the abuser, or am I going to run to the kid who loves me? And so often that's us. Am I gonna run back to the abusive relationship with sin? Am I gonna run back to the abusive relationship with my addiction? Or are we gonna run back to the liar who has kept us as slaves? Or are we gonna run into freedom to the God who wants to be our good Father? And are we gonna find ourselves and our identity and who we are in being His children? I want to ask the ministry team the worship team to come on forward. And in just a second, we're just going to have a time of worship. And as we enter into that, it's going to be an opportunity for us to say yes to God as a Father. Say, God, yes, I do. I just want you to be my Father. I lay down all of these other things and just say, yes, God, will you come and will you Father me? And there may be a few people in this room where you wouldn't think of yourself as a follower of Jesus, so a child of God isn't really part of the identity that you came in with. So you didn't have any felt need to defend yourself because that wasn't part of your identity to start out with. And if that's you, I would say use this time to ask yourself, hey, is this something that I would want? If God is really a good Father who loves me and wants to invite me into freedom, is this something that I would want for myself? And just spend some time exploring, what would it look like for me to become a child of God? So let's stand together, and I'm just going to pray over us, and let's worship. God, thank you so much for just the invitation to be part of your family. Thank you that even when there are hard words, God, that it's for our blessing, because you want to give us the gift of identity in you and the gift of freedom. And God, we just receive what you have for us this morning, and we say yes to you. Would you come? Would you meet us here? And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. I want to invite the ministry team up to the front. We end our services each week with an opportunity to receive prayer. We love to just pray for each other at Coast Vineyard. It's one of our passions. We find that when we come to God together in prayer, that He meets us and He heals us and He blesses us. And so we want to do that right now. So I'm just going to invite anyone who just feels like God's really working something in my heart right now. If that's you, just come on up to the front. Any one of these people who's sitting at the front would love to pray with you this morning. And actually, if we could get a couple more ministry team folks, we're getting more ministry team folks, good, yeah. So we just would love to spend some time just praying for you. If God's touching something in your heart and you're willing to share that with somebody else and you'd like to receive prayer, there's a couple of specific groups of people I felt like God spoke to me about this morning as we were praying over the services, and I want to share that with you. One was I felt like God was reminding me that a lot of us have not had really spectacular human parents. Some of us can say, wow, my parents were so wonderful to me. And others of us would say, wow, none of these things that we've been really talking about in terms of parents and children really characterize my relationship with my human parents. And the idea of having God as a father isn't necessarily really very appealing. There were times in my life when I thought, Father? I don't need one of those. Thank you. And I feel like if that's you, God is saying, give me a chance. Give me a chance to show you that I'm different, that I'm not like the human fathers that you've known, that I'm not like the human mothers that you've known, but I'm a parent unlike anything that you might have experienced before. Come to me and let me parent you. Let me father you. And the second thing is, I just felt as we were praying this warmth, like I was sitting near a fire and I smelled the smell of like holiday cooking. And I felt like God was saying there's some people here who you were close to God in some ways when you were young. Maybe you went to church a long time ago and you used to feel good about relationship with God, or you had a taste of what it might look like to be God's child, but you've walked a long way away since then. And I just felt like God was saying, if that's you, the invitation right now is come home. He's saying, I've created a warm and a safe space for you. I'm cooking a wonderful holiday meal for you, and I want you to come inside and meet me and let me love you. So if you're either one of those people, the people where it's hard to imagine wanting God for a father, or you once knew what that was like, at least a little bit, but it's been a long time and God's calling you home, particularly want to invite those people to get prayer. And again, anyone else who just feels a tug on their heart, please come forward and get prayer. And then we're going to go ahead and close the service. So if you can take the hands of people who are standing near you. We do this every week at Coast Vineyard as a sign that God has made us one in Him. It's a way that we affirm our community. And so, Lord, we just thank you for the community that you've given us. And God, we thank you for the invitation to be children in the house of God. Thank you that you're the one who does that. And all we have to do is to come and say yes. And God, just would you bless us to find ourselves in you, to be at home in your presence, and to be at home in your word. God, I ask that you would pour out your goodness on every one of us that's here. And we go out of here in your name, Jesus. Amen.